The entire purpose of a healthy diet is to remove stress from your life. Therefore, any sort of eating style that causes stress and anxiety is by definition a poor diet.
If you're looking to either lose weight or lose it easier, or if you've lost weight or you don't want to gain more weight, you need to pay attention to what I'm about to talk to you about, because it's going to make all that stuff that you're looking to do a lot easier and avoid a whole lot of hassle. Today what we're doing is we're talking about your caloric horizon. Your caloric horizon is incredibly important for you to know what it is and how you relate to it on a day-to-day basis to both make weight loss easier, to make weight management easier, and to lower your risk of weight gain. All right, so here's your caloric horizon. Think of horizon, the surface of the earth, and you are like a plane flying along. The objective you want to have on a daily basis is to get as high above the deck as possible. So if you think of an airplane that's flying along really high, it could go up, it could go down, it can dive, it can do all these things and be safe. It doesn't risk crashing into the ground. So you want to do this with your caloric balance, okay? So we have two things. We have calories out, calories in. Now, the way to think about it is your caloric horizon is roughly like what your BMR is, your base metabolic rate, basal metabolic rate, whatever you want to call it. And you can figure out what that is roughly. There's apps you can get on your phone. Just go to Google and Google BMR calculators. Do like 3 or 4 of them and then take an average. Is it going to be dead on accurate? No, but it doesn't have to be. As long as you're within a couple hundred calories, you'll be pretty good. For most people, this will probably be around 1,300, 15, 16, 17, 18 is getting a little high. Some people are like, oh, my BMR is 2,500 calories. No, not unless you're like 7 foot tall in the NBA or a linebacker in the NFL or something. It's going to be in the teens, most likely. So these two things, as long as they're the same, your weight stays the same. It doesn't matter if it's high, if it's low, it's, wherever it is. When they're the same level, your weight stays the same level. It's not about a particular diet, not about a particular exercise. That's influential, yes, it's important, but none of it controls it. There's no such thing as a food or an exercise or a workout or a diet or anything that is in full control of how much fat is on your body. It's the balance between these two things. So your BMR is caloric expenditure, right? Calories out. Now that's how many calories your body is expending on a daily basis to run the show, to stay alive, so to speak, run your immune system, maintain muscle mass, sodium potassium balance, all this sorts of stuff. So your out is here. Now this is kind of automatic. In, of course, is how much your BMR, how much your intake on food is. Now, if, of course, in is higher than out, you're gaining weight, regardless of what the numbers are, regardless of what the diet looks like, regardless of what your program at the gym looks like. If that's higher than that, you're gaining weight, and vice versa. So, what you want to do is always make sure and try and get your expenditure as high above your BMR, above your caloric horizon as much as possible, as often as possible. This gives you buffer. So intake can go up and down and up and down, and you have this ability to be flexible with your diet and how much you're eating, and you're good. You're good. So if you're up here, let's say BMR for estimation purposes is like 1,500, and you're up here, and let's say it's 2,500, you got about 1,000 calories you can play with. And you'll be able to lose weight easier. So it's like, oh, I'm at 2,500 calories. I'm going to bring this down to, let's say, 1,800. Boom, you're losing weight. It's much easier because you're eating less. Your expenditure is still plenty high. The thing is, if your intake starts to go at or below this BMR, this is where you're starting to get the bells and the red lights are going off on the dashboard going, you are getting low. Mother Nature knows these are the calories that you're taking in to stay alive in your current situation. When you're expending 2,500 but you're taking in 2,500, you're taking in enough to maintain weight. But once you're not taking in this, you're not taking enough to maintain your overall health. So when you are under your BMR, as far as your intake goes, you can do it, you can lose weight, it's okay, but it's going to be a lot harder and much more stressful. And this is why when a lot of people, they're like here, Okay, they're like, oh, but I hardly ever eat anything. Why am I not losing weight or anything? They're very close to their caloric horizon. It's kind of like that jet plane that's real close to the deck. You don't have much wiggle room. So it sets you up for a number of things. Number one is if you try and eat less and really restrict your diet more, it's gonna be a lot harder and a lot more stressful if you just start even change it a little bit. If you're both up here, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna skip dessert a couple times, I'm gonna have less to eat for late night dinners and things like that, you can probably cut back and still be like, it's a little bit tricky, but I'm good. I'm not, you know, hunger's not too bad, I'm not getting terrible cravings, things are still pretty good. But if you're down here and you cut out like 500 calories or so, you're gonna really notice it. It's gonna suck. The other thing too is if you're very close to your caloric horizon, and you're only eating like 1,500 or some odd calories a day, it's really easy to pop that sucker up right there. You can go to a football game or so, you have a couple extra hot dogs, a couple extra beers or so forth, and suddenly it's real easy for you to gain weight. And it feels like it's not fair. It feels like it's so hard to keep your weight low. It's because your expenditure, let's say for purposes here, it's like 1,800, but your intake for a couple days is 2,500. You do that a couple of times in a month, you're easily gaining a few pounds of body fat in a month. So it sets you up for easier weight gain. And it's a lot harder to lose it because if your expenditure is here, you just gained a lot of weight, and you're like, okay, time to get my diet back in check, and you bring it back down, it feels like you're eating a lot less, and it feels like you just brought things down, but look, you're still in a caloric balance. You're not gonna be losing that body fat anytime soon. It's not going anywhere, and now you're like, oh, now I gotta eat a lot less, you know, and now you're below the BMR, or you're close to your BMR. You don't have to even be below it, but you're close to it, and the stress is going to be mounting very quick. So it's a lot harder to lose it, and it's a lot harder to lose it even quickly. So the lesson here is get above your caloric horizon as much as possible, as high as possible. This is one of the reasons why diet may not be the most important aspect in your weight loss or weight management strategies. You know, get active. Don't even just think workouts. Move as much as you can all day, every day. Get the caloric expenditure as high as possible. Your neighbors like chopping wood, go volunteer chopping wood, carrying wood. You know, park the car as far away. Move as much as possible to get above that caloric horizon. That way, you're here, you're still maintaining weight. Now it's like, oh, I ate a little bit too much over the holidays. Not a problem. You know, you don't have to move a lot more, you don't have to do anything. You can bring your diet down, weight comes right on off because it's a lot easier because you're staying above your caloric horizon a lot more. So this is, again, why you need output to be as high as possible, as much as possible. And it's gonna make things a lot easier for you. Questions down below. Till then, be fit, live free.